Hey, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to tonight's episode of Matter of Opinion, and we are live. And when I tell you I'm so excited about this episode, like you just don't know. So, first and foremost, I have to bring it back just for some people who don't know. There was a debate that we had where we talked about Joe Rogan and his over excessive use of the N word. And if you remember that episode, WallzP and Strategic got into a nice, respectful debate about the word and who can use it, who can't use it, all of those good things. So, first and foremost, I want you two to introduce yourself and then let's get into it.
All right. Go ahead,
Well,
Steve.
I'm the guest, so I should introduce myself
Yeah.
here first. Thank you very much.
Shots fired.
Strategic back again. What's going on, guys? Now I'm just joking. So I'm Strategic Guys. I'm the host of the Strategic Guys show. I'm an active duty police officer. On my show, we talk about everything. I still don't know how to classify what my show is. I just speak from my heart. I go wherever the universe takes me. And I see we already got a $50 super chat
Yes,
from Stevie Marley said,
Woo!
"Team Strategic in the house." So listen, man, I hope your people ready to show up for you today because Strategic Guys family showing up already, baby.
That's
the
what's up.
pressure's
Hey.
on Walls P. You
Yeah,
already
that's what's
got
up.
it.
Yes, sir. That's
Good luck,
what's up.
Stevie. Appreciate you, brother. So yeah, active duty police officer. Come through to the channel, subscribe to the channel, like to the channel, help out my small YouTube channel grow. Appreciate you guys for having me here.
And for me, I'm WallzP, the second half of Matter of Opinion, the show where we debate, talk about different things, bring different perspective to different topics, whether it's I would say police interactions with civilians, whether it's people. I want financial literacy. Like you said, it's hard to like classify it because we touch on so many different topics. So yeah, like we touch on so many different things and try and give people a different perspective. And like I said, sometimes we get into heated debates and everything like that, but at the end of the day, we just want to give a different perspective on certain subject matters because a lot of times people go into it with tunnel vision. So we like try and give a different perspective on things and make people think outside the box.
Exactly.
Yep.
And first and foremost, we got to do some housekeeping. I got to go over the rules. First things first, of course, we're going to be respectful. Secondly, no hitting below the belt. And then thirdly, make sure we are not yelling and over talking each other, okay?
All right.
Got that understood? Perfect.
Yes.
All right.
So again, since Strategic is our guest, I want to start with you first. I want to know, how do you feel about the N word, and do you think that Black people should still use it?
Well, first of all, WallzP, you ugly.
Yo, look,
that's below the belt.
Check it out. No, but check it out though. On Gary's but check it out. On Gary's live stream, they was calling me strategic. So
Yeah, they were.
we match, brother. We match.
You are a handsome. That is the sexiest MF5 I've seen in my life.
But it's all love. It's all love.
You guys crazy. All right, so you know what, this actually is I'm so happy that we're having this discussion because I think this is a discussion that needs to happen across the country. This is a discussion that needs to happen in every single Black household. All right. Now I'm gonna answer your question, but just for the people who are just jumping into this and didn't see where part one occurred, which is many shows ago, because we both make a lot of content.
Yeah.
We were discussing the use of the N-word by Joe Rogan. All right. And before I make my point, I just have to, lay the groundwork. I believed that there were two stories that they called him out on. One story was when he spoke about driving into a Black community and he was in a jungle and all that stuff. And I said, yo, that's straight up racist and that man needs to be held accountable for that. But the other thing was a compilation video that people pieced together of him speaking about comedians and situations and all that stuff that they were trying to hold against him. And I felt that was a hit job. So then we started talking about the N-word. So to answer your question, I do not believe that anybody should use the N-word. All right. I think it's an evil word. I think it was a word that was created to subjugate Black folks. All right. Now, I'm going to destroy WallzP argument right now by straight attacking it and saying WallzP is going to give you a whole bunch of historical mumbo jumbo about how the N word used to mean Jesus Christ in heaven and Thor in Valhalla or whatever.
Not Thor.
Mm.
But it doesn't matter because for centuries that word was used to tell black folks that they're lesser than thou. All right. I'm gonna get real deep with you. The slave master used to whisper that in our mothers and our grandmothers' ears as he raped them. All right. The slave master used to scream that at young black men and old black men as he whipped them in the fields. So how is it that we feel like we could take a word that has so much generational pain and now somehow turn it into something positive in the presence of people who are descendants of, you know, slave masters? And I'm not one of those people that hold that against white folks. I'm not one of those people that feel like white people should be ashamed of themselves because their great grandparents were slave masters. But just for the sake of my argument, in the presence, we have young black men calling each other N-words. To me, that's painful and it's disgusting. I now give the floor to WallzP or to the moderator.
WallzP, do you have an intro or a rebuttal you would like to give?
Yeah. So my rebuttal to that is I disagree with strategic on the strength of, yes, that word is, was used to basically paint us in a negative light, subhuman, degenerates, and even criminals and everything like that. But again, even if we're not going to go into the philosophical word of it, at the end of the day, if we're going to go with the context of it's from the Latin word Niger, the Latin word Niger basically means black. That's what it means. It means black. Now, there's nothing negative about it. So pretty much the root word that it stemmed from was saying black. Now, if you got white folks or white people during slavery times that took the word, hijacked it, and made it into another meaning, okay. But in my opinion, what is wrong with a word that somebody created, your oppressor created against you, to basically make you feel lesser than thou? So then those group of people turn around after they are no longer oppressed, change the word with adding the A at the end. And I understand, strategic, you're saying, it makes no difference with the word. One letter doesn't make a difference in the word. And I kind of have to debate that, because our whole lexicon and every word in the English language, one letter can change a word. I'll keep it as simple as SEA, SEA. Same word, two different complete meanings. Here, HEAR, HERE. So we have plenty of words in the dictionary that we can accept that one letter changed the dynamic of the word. Now, with that being said, here you have a group of people that were oppressed and they want to take the power back of that word by changing it. And then the word that they change it to, like, they're like, yo, you can't use this word. And even the word that you use to basically degrade us, you can't use that word either. To me, that's a strong arm move. And that's basically taking the power back from the people who was oppressing you with the word that they were. So that's why I look at it. And the reason why I held it against Joe Rogan is because even though he was using it in that context, and when we was having the live, I think the where we had the disconnect, where this all started, was I said Joe Rogan, when he was given an explanation, basically said he one of the contexts he was using it was the way rappers use it. And I'm like, to me, that doesn't sound right, because no rapper says the hard ER. They say the A, which I take it as a different meaning completely. So if you're going to reference a rapper for you to say the hard ER, I'm sorry. I look at it as you was intentionally trying to use that word, because to any black person, when you use the word with the hard ER, you're intentionally trying to be offensive to those group of people. So that's why I said I still hold it against them no matter how much it was taken, because if we're going to talk about the LGBT community, even if somebody recites something that's a derogatory statement, we're gonna be like, yo, this person said the G word, or this person said this. We're not gonna literally state that word. But why would we allow it and not say, oh, I'm not taking offense? Why? And that shows why a lot of communities make a lot of movements when it comes to those bashing us. But yet, it's like, oh, okay, whatever, the rug. I'm not mad at it. So that's where I stood with that, taking offense to him saying it with the ER as opposed to the hard A.
All right. Can I jump in here, moderator?
Absolutely.
Because
Now,
I
how do
thought
you I wanted
wait,
to.
wait. I want to address some of the stuff you're saying here, man.
Yep, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I need to do a rebuttal here, okay? First of all, I appreciate the fact that WallzP is reading from a script.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm definitely not
going off the top
Wait,
of the
Walls,
dome.
I'm definitely not. Okay, sorry.
You gotta let him talk.
Sorry.
All right, so you made some interesting points here, right? One of the points that you said is like you use the difference between C and C, right? SEE versus SEA. Those are two benign words. Those aren't disrespectful words. Those are words that describe basic things in our reality, oceans and your ability to perceive senses with your eyes, right? We're talking about a word that was used for evil, right? Then you made another point. You said the difference between NIGGA and NIGGER, right? A lot of these kids don't even know the difference. When a dude is looking at when a black man is arguing with another black man in the streets, as we see happening in the streets of Chicago and New York and all over this country, and he's getting ready to shoot that black man, you think he's making a difference between an NIGGA and an NIGGER before he pulls that trigger? He doesn't. A lot of these kids don't understand the historical context. They either say it because it sounds cool, and that's what their mother called them and their father called them, because I've heard it with my own eyes. Parents calling their kids that name, or it's what they're taking from pop culture, from rap music and all that extra stuff. All right. So I really don't see how that's a good example, because, for instance, if I'm a religious person, I'm not going to name my son Lucifer. There's nothing wrong with that name, Lucifer, because Lucifer was the morning star. Lucifer was the most powerful angel in heaven, second only to God. He was also the most beautiful angel. But that name also represents somebody who betrayed an oath, somebody who falls, if you believe in religion, if you want to take it on that angle. So, yes, Lucifer originally could have been a beautiful name. In reality, it signifies something different. Words have meanings. So, lastly, on the Joe Rogan point, right? When we have young African-American males using that word, even Latinos, using that, because Latinos think they can use it, period. All right, especially if you're from the inner city, using that word to hurt other black people, using that word to exploit other black people, using that word in pop culture now, using that word in regular vernacular. How can you now hold somebody to a higher standard and you try and extrapolate whether they're saying NIGGA versus NIGGER when people say it, it sounds the same. The only people who are making a difference with it is the scholars, the people who study this stuff, the people who so in tune in the culture on that level where they're like, and When people say it, they just say the word. And it's not fair to people like Joe Rogan when we're using it so just wantonly without any care for what it really means. And then when they're saying it, we're like, oh, no, well, you can't say it. It doesn't make sense. It seems un-American to me that one group of people could say one thing and another group of people can't. And we're arguing over a word that was used for destruction of a people. Please continue.
Okay.
Also, I'm sorry. I just wanted to interrupt one time. I just wanted to point out there that there are some countries actually that have banned the name Lucifer. I just wanted to point that out there. You could go ahead, WallzP.
All right. I have to disagree, because whenever we have a situation that a person is saying the N-word, whether it's outside of the black community, the main thing that everybody always asks is, was it with the hard ER? You may not believe so, but for me, I personally feel people definitely make that distinction. So, okay, here's where I'm gonna go with it, right? So that word was created basically to talk about our own wretchedness, and we feel we should get out of that, like stop using that word. So the next question I gotta ask to you is, Are we talking from a literal sense or a cultural sense? That's a question I'm asking you, strategic. Are we
Can you
talking
clarify a little bit?
meaning? Are you saying that word shouldn't be used in a literal sense or from a cultural sense? Because like the way we talk is we speak like what culturally, like things that go culturally. Meaning, let me try and give you an example.
Mhm.
For instance, the word, the word, the word. I'm trying to think of the word. I'm trying to think of a word. Incredible, right?
Right.
The literal word of incredible, credible means something have substance. The minute when you add the pre in, that means that it doesn't have substance. So if somebody is telling you something and you're like, "Yo, that's incredible," you're basically saying what you're saying is BS. It has no credence. It's
Mhm.
BS. But now we use it in a term where you say, "Yo, that's incredible." That's like saying, "Yo, that's amazing. You did a phenomenal job." That's
Mhm.
a cultural thing. So
Mhm.
when we speak not literal, but in a cultural sense. So I'm asking you, is your the test for the word in a literal sense or a cultural sense?
Well, to me, they're interchangeable. In this, with this particular word, you made a good point. But with
Mm-hmm.
this particular word, they're interchangeable because the cultural aspect is what makes the word what it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Whether you believe that the etymology of the word is from the Egyptian word for nikja, which is basically God or deity, which is also includes demons too. They didn't make a
Mm-hmm.
distinction. Or as we spoke before, you said it was Ethiopian,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or if you believe it comes from Latin with negro, which is black.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
In America, they changed it to Nigger. That was the word that they transformed it to, and the power that they gave it at the time was to subjugate people. So to me, the literal sense of the word and the cultural sense of the word is one and the same. Now, if they still said negro, then I think what you're saying would make more sense to me, at least, because negro literally has a meaning, which is black.
Mm.
So it's like, well, we can't take away the word, the name that we have for the color black in these languages just to appease black people and the historical context of how that word is used in reference to them. But this is a word that's contrived from these other words and has become its own word. There is no other definition for that word besides ignorant,
All right. So here's my
which is a
comeback.
negative word in
Okay,
its
sorry.
sense in itself.
So
Back
here's
it
my
out.
here's my comeback, right? So you're saying we shouldn't accept it because of that, right?
Right.
And this is the point I want to make. We agree that America was founded because people was trying to escape out of Europe, right?
For the most part.
Okay. Now, do we
There's a whole lot of
realize that?
economics in that as well. But go ahead.
Okay. But do we realize that when that happened, the term American was like you're beneath, like you're a degenerate. The term referring to Americans, it was like you was a joke, you was a clown, so to speak, right? That's what it was. But now, basically, when America was established, like we were, less than to Europe. But now, when America became a world power, it's like, yeah, the Americans that you was clowning, this is an American. I'm an American, and now we proudly use being an American, which is something that was derived of calling us in a in a negative light, so to speak. So why is it that we can take a word that started as negative for American, and now it's acceptable? But now here we have a group of people who, and like I said, I understand you like, hey, people say it on the block, I'm gonna shoot my ops, but people, in my opinion, I look at it. What's the difference of if you say, "Yo, I'm gonna shoot that N with the A at the end," or "I'm gonna shoot that mother effer," or "I'm gonna shoot that B," or I'm gonna shoot son over there," or "I'm gonna shoot homie over there." At the end of the day, people will use certain things in negative light, regardless whether they're using it in a positive light or a negative light.
Mhm.
And I'll even take it to curses, like the F word. That's fricken, which is a negative word. I don't hear the outcry for banning it. And if there is a cry for banning it, those same people who are talking about banned words are still using the F word and everything like that. So why is it a group of people who are oppressed that basically made a word to change the dynamic, saying we're taking that power back, is so ostracized, but in other areas, it's embraced. And that's where I have my disconnect of saying, yo, if somebody have it in their mind saying, yo, I say the N word, I can't be mad at that.
All right, so I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
What's the difference between a Holocaust and a genocide?
It's about the same.
About the same, right?
Mm.
Right. But
Mhm.
prior to World War II, people would use the word Holocaust often to describe the mass killing of people.
Mhm.
But after the Jews, Holocaust is pretty much associated to what happened in Germany because the historical trauma, that word became the identity of that historical trauma. All these examples that you're given don't encompass the cultural and the historical trauma that comes with the word Nigger. All
Mm.
right. So just
Mhm.
like how people don't say Holocaust like that unless they really have to, because they understand that when you say that words, that means 3 million dead people slaughtered by Germans, right? When you say the word Nigger, you're basically talking about tens of millions of people who were slaughtered, raped, and tortured over the span of 400 years, to the point where we have grandparents that are alive that could not sit in the front of the bus. That's the legacy of that word. And they were being called that. Get to the back of the bus, Nigger. So it's not even like we talking about ancient history. We're talking about recent history. We're talking about people that you could go sit in the living room and talk to them and hear stories firsthand from those individuals of what it was like being a sharecropper, working on a plantation, experiencing Jim Crow in the South. So every example that you're given, you're using words and examples that don't have trauma associated with it. So my point is, at the end of the day, is I think it's an ugly word that nobody should use, but I think it's the height of hypocrisy when you say some people should use it and some people don't. If anything, then you should just let everybody use it, and that's the best way to dumb it down. Because then you'll have white guys, Asian guys, Spanish guys, Eskimos, everybody calling each other Niggers, and that's how to truly disempower the word, to make the word nothing different than saying hello. But when you have a certain amount of people saying it, a certain group of people saying it, every single day in their everyday term, in everyday communication, right? And then
Mhm.
the moment somebody who's outside of that group says it, we now come down on them like, I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to destroy you. You should lose your fortunes. You should go to jail. You should be drawn and quartered. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because it's hypocrisy, just like how the word is hypocritical. It's a disgusting, ugly word that should not be used by anybody. But if
But
you're
see,
not going to let everybody use it, then nobody should use it. I'm sorry.
but see, that's where my disconnect is, because you're pointing out the ER. I agree with the ER. My thing is, I view the A at the end as being completely different. That's what I view. So, okay, do you have an issue with blacks referring to each other as a black man?
In No, I don't, because we use that, like, humans always want to quantify things. They want to put ourselves in categories so we can better understand things. So, like even in policing, in the police academy, they're like, yo, we refer to people as black and white because it's just the easiest way to throw a description out of somebody. So you're not gonna say that Caucasian, right, Indo-European Asian dude. You're gonna say, yo, that white guy with a blue shirt and white pants is the one who robbed the store. The black guy with the purple shirt and the green pants is the one who robbed the store. I don't have a problem with it. Go ahead.
It's a
All right.
social construct.
Oh,
I just want to
okay.
put that
Yeah.
out there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Mhm.
Mhm.
okay. So I'm glad that you said that. The literal definition of a black man having a man having black or very dark skin. At number two, an evil spirit. also the evil one, the devil, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, but
we're
what's your
okay.
source for that? You know,
Listen,
I'm
listen,
seeing,
listen, listen,
I'm
listen,
looking
listen,
at
listen.
text that look like 1,000 years old.
Strategic,
Yeah, because
you
this
can't
is the
interrupt.
original and
Talk.
literal depicting of the word black man. So the word black man is labeled devil, evil, the dark one, all of this other stuff, right? But now with culture acceptance, the word basically got changed to actually mean, a black person, a man, yada yada, right?
Yeah, I have to interject here.
Okay, I'm listening.
Respectfully.
Okay.
Respectfully, the reason why I have to interject is that you can't put things on the screen without properly sourcing it. That's not fair to me or to the audience because we don't know where you got that definition from. What do you think about that, Tia? You're in college. You're about to be a doctor. Is that fair? How does he just throw a definition and I don't know where that definition comes from?
I have to agree, WallzP. So do you have the source, or do you want us to give you a few
I'm gonna
minutes
get it.
to
Yeah,
find
I'm
it?
gonna get. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I stop a guy for a traffic stop and he says, you don't have the authority to stop me. Here's my Black's Law Dictionary.
Nah, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go with that or whatever.
I'm
But
just saying though,
yeah. All right. So I mean, we got Wiktionary. Wiktionary also have it listed in there, which I'll share the screen.
Can we get some primary sources? Can we see Oxford? Can we see
The thing with
Webster?
that,
Mhm.
the thing with that is it's a paid service to get the Oxford, like you got to pay into those things or whatever for the Oxford dictionary and stuff like that. So I don't have like the access to the paid version of it or whatever. But if you Google black man and actually look it up, within the context, you're gonna see one of the definitions is an evil spirit, the boogeyman, a demon, stuff like that. So, like I said, with cultural acceptance and everything like that, the word has changed to people don't even look at it like that. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, I understand you're saying, the hard ER was made from XYZ, was made from, back in the day where it was really made to ostracize us. But there's a lot of words that were literally made to ostracize us that we use every day in the English language and it gets a pass. So my whole argument is, why do we have this? But you have black people who literally said, yo, the reason why we're reinventing this word is to take the power out of it. And the other thing I want to say is, I'm not one of them people who say, if somebody say the N-word with the A at the end, I don't care. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're Spanish. I don't care as far as the A at the end. Because I know, like, the reason why people formed the word with the A at the end was to change the narrative and mean a form of endearment. Now, the ER, I don't want nobody saying the one with the ER. But what my argument is, I see them as two separate entities. And I think that's where we'll always have that disconnect on this subject matter. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, but at the same time, that's the way I see it. Because I see across everything, it's being accepted on words that are made to degrade us, but we change the narrative. So why not with this?
I mean, as far as the examples that you gave, none of those examples, like even when you said black man, still has the weight and the gravity of the word Nigger or Nigga. I don't really see a difference between the two, so I want to make sure that that's known.
Mm-hmm.
If I spell one, I mean the other, and they're both interchangeable. Now, to me, like this whole notion of we're taking back the word and we're gonna redefine as me, that's a recent thing, and once again, to my knowledge and from my experience, and it's anecdotal, a lot of it, people don't really, they're not really in tune with that concept. It seems like that's like some construct that was made by a segment of our population to explain why this word is being rampantly used in the inner city, and to try and put roadblocks and barriers to other races using it. It just doesn't make any sense, man. It really doesn't. You know, I understand where the historical context of it, and I think you do too.
Mm-hmm.
But our divide is that there's some things you can't reclaim.
Mm.
There's some things that need to be banned because it will allow the representation of the gravity of what happened to be realized. So we don't run around saying Holocaust because we want to always Holocaust for what it was. So we don't want a new situation to come up and now we're mixing and matching and people could get confused of what situation we're talking about. We want the Holocaust to be a standalone situation for everybody to learn from. Well, this word represents a standalone situation in human history. All right, people been slaves for since the beginning of time. I'm sure the cavemen had slaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we never saw on the scale what happened in the South with the way that it was organized, the way that it was monetized, and the way that it destroyed a community to the point where we see it today, the remnants of it. And then its lasting vestiges. The British had slaves, and then they cut that out, and you see British African Americans faring a whole lot better than American African Americans.
Mm.
It took so long for this country to get to the point where it is right now. And it's a great nation. I love this country. But it took so long for us to get to this moment right now because even when the chains were cut, you still had laws and institutions that were put in place to keep black people as second-class citizens. And to sit there and hear the historical context of that, and then people just decide, well, we're going to take that evil word and we're going to try and make it into something cool. And then when we say it, I'm going to kill that Nigga. Well, the slave master said, I'm going to kill that Nigger. And now we got rappers talking about, I'm going to kill that Nigga. What's the difference?
See,
What's
this
the
is where
difference?
this is where I got to give you pushback because you keep referring to the Holocaust and everything like that. But the thing with the Holocaust is when the Holocaust ended, it ended. People give respect. Like you don't speak about it because people give respect to it. If anybody say I was a Holocaust person or I had a family member that was in the Holocaust and everything like that, or my suffering is due to the Holocaust, people sit there and say, oh man, they feel their pain. When a lot of people bring up slavery, it's, oh, you wasn't a slave, so what are you worried about it for? Like that was 400, 500 years. So it doesn't get that same deference. So that's number one. Number two, you just said it. Even after slavery ended, there was still a feel of oppression. So my thing is, whenever it comes to the black community, it's always anything that you could do. Like for instance, it was okay for everybody to have guns that wasn't black. But the minute blacks was able to get guns, oh, now we have a problem with people having legal guns and stuff like that. The thing I'm trying to make is whenever it comes to anything black, it's always, yeah, we got to do away with this. Like what do we have? So
So we should have the N word.
Strategic.
Listen. So the N word, like you said, the Holocaust, people don't talk about it because it's like, yo, that's disrespect. But the N word was still going on after slavery. People were still being ostracized with the word. So if you're going to be pinned in a corner where you're going to keep using this word towards me, then I'm going to change it in a way that it's not going to affect me and take the power away from the word. So it's kind of like you pin me into a corner. So now I got to find a way to fight out of this corner or scratch and scratch and claw through this corner because you're clearly not understanding this word is affecting me. And as time went on where blacks started getting more and more rights, that's when it was, yo, I don't want to hear you use that word. So we're acting like when people changed it to the A at the end, people are saying, nah, you can't use that word. No, that's not what was going on. It was kind of like a way of coping on our end to seek refuge from that word. So I understand where you're coming from with the whole Holocaust thing, but that's treated different than slavery and how blacks are treated when they're ostracized. So it's like, yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Okay. So first of all,
mm-hmm.
when you were talking about, the difference between the Holocaust and slavery, It's to me, it's a little different because, for instance, you're talking about what was done to black people.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about is what black people are doing to themselves. So what we're doing is we're using this word against ourselves, which is destroying us. Because what it's doing is it's giving people permission to say those words like Joe Rogan. Now I understand what you're saying as far as that, we were oppressed and this word was being used against us and
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to reclaim the word. I get that. How can I debate with that? I mean, people's psychology is different. People are going to react to stresses differently. But can we not evolve? Can we not get to the point where we say, well, we no longer need to associate with that word, especially when the funny thing is this is a generational and a economic divide, because middle class black people don't call themselves n words. Educated black people don't call themselves n words. I come from the hood and I'm in middle class now, thank God. None of the black folks that surround me in middle class with professional jobs and college educations call themselves an N-word. It's not even, they don't even sing it in music. It's never an excuse for them to say it. The people who are saying it are low income people who are in very dangerous communities. And I get it. I will concede that part to you. I will concede your impassioned argument because it made sense. Like, hey, we're constantly being called the N-word. We don't have the power to make Congress illegal, make it illegal. We talk too loudly, we might disappear in the night and end up like Emmett Till. Yeah. Anybody who tries to pretend like this country was not a violent country against black bodies is insane. And there's a lot of people who think it too. They think the 60s was sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
But at some point, we have to evolve. And that word is derived from evil. And you can't go and tell white America, Asian America, Latino America, don't say the word. If every time they turn on Hot 97 in New York, they hear and N-word, 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 N-word. If every time you listen to a black comedian, you hear N-word, 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 N-word. Every time you walk through the inner city and the streets, you hear, yo, N-word, pick me up some bread from the store. Every time
Mm-hmm.
you see a black person taking another black person's life, it's I'ma kill you, N-word. You can't tell these folks, these children, these Caucasian kids who are growing up, not knowing nothing about racism, liking to listen to rap. They're little kids. They're like 10, 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell them you're a racist, you're evil for using the N word when we are making that word mainstream. And I think that word should be relegated to history. And lastly, you can't ask for people to put respect on your struggle if you're not putting respect on your struggle. Like the argument that you're making is black people can't even have that argument because we don't even know our own history. You got so many young black people walking out there that don't even know where they come from, don't even understand the gravity of what their ancestors went through in this country. We got an education problem in our community. You don't have an
Mm-hmm.
education problem in the Jewish community. And they demand respect. We don't demand respect. Look who we put in the White House, Joe Biden. How can you demand respect when you put a man in the White House that was friends with a racist, a man who locked up black people, a man who said he didn't want his son to be on the same school bus as black kids because he feel like he's in a jungle? But you telling me that we don't get the same respect to these folks? Those folks don't tolerate nonsense. And I don't know if it's because of our culture, it's because of conditioning we had on the plantation, or the generational trauma that we still have in our souls. We tolerate bullshit. We tolerate so much bullshit that we willing to normalize a word that was used to oppress us.
Now,
Yeah,
I can definitely agree with you on a lot of the things that you said or whatever. And I'm not disagreeing with you. But my thing is, if we're going to say get rid of this word, then in my opinion, you need to get rid of every word as far as curse words. Anything that can paint somebody in a negative light, get rid of it. Because to me, it comes off as a hypocrite when it's like, yo, get rid of this word, don't use this word, but then you turn around and use curse words. To me, I do not see the difference. Some people may be like, nah, it's a difference, yada yada. But to me, it's the same. If I say, yo, I'm a bad N-word or I'm a bad mother effer, that's, to me, that's still all in the same. So yeah, if you're gonna make that fight of let's get rid of this word, then I see it as you shouldn't be cursing, you shouldn't be using vulgarity and everything like that. That's the way I see it. Because if you ask me, would I rather, like, if you put a gun to my head and you like, yo, your child had to say a word, either a curse word or the N word with the A at the end, I'm going with the A at the end because I know the history of it. That's me. And my thing is, those who know the word should be actually teaching those what the history of the word is, yada yada. And from there, like the conversation of banning the word, that, yes, I understand that's a conversation. That's another conversation in itself. But at least educating the history of the word and why this word derived from, I feel like that's very important to have, because most regular Black Americans, they don't know their history. And we can agree that that's a common problem in the Black community, is their history, so to speak. So yes, I can agree. You're saying a lot of Black people don't know the history of the word, don't know the history of the word, but I know it's anecdotal. The way I got interpreted to use it, it's like saying the, like, not saying, but like introduced to saying the N word with the A at the end, was everybody around me was saying, yo, it's a term of endearment, yada yada. But since it's a lot of different mixed opinions about it, people don't really want to say it because you don't know who you're gonna offend. And I view that no different than if you're saying a curse word. You're not gonna use a curse word anywhere because you don't know who it's gonna offend.
Strategic.
Yeah. All right. So when we talk about
Mm-hmm.
curse words are universal. If I say F you, I can say that to anybody. If I say you're a hole, buttholes don't have color. Most of them are just pink. Well, actually, they do have color. You know, when we're talking about, once again, and I want to keep coming back to this point because that's the crutch of my argument, and therefore I can never allow this conversation to escape it. When we're talking about the N word, we're talking about a word that has historical meaning. We're talking about a word that people were killed over. We're talking about a word that was said over people's dying bodies. We're talking about a word that was used to oppress people. So you want to eat in the white restaurant? No, you can't, N-word. You want to ride to the front of the bus? No, you can't, N-word. It was a word that was always meant to put you back in your place, which is subhuman, which is lesser than thou. So I would not agree with banning all curse words, because we're literally banning something, and you can if you want, but you're literally banning something that is equally offensive to everybody. This word is unique, and Asian people don't tolerate it. Jewish people don't tolerate it. White people don't tolerate it. The only people who tolerate this stuff is Black people. And we need to fight against that. We need to rise up against that. We need to not wallow in our own ignorance. We need to stand up and say words have meanings, and we need to respect them as such. And we need to not just respect the definition of the word, but the historical context of the word, because they go hand in hand. They're one entity. You cannot separate them no matter how hard you try.
See, but I gotta disagree with that, man, because it seemed like before the N word with the A came up, there was no talks about banning the N word. Nobody didn't say nothing, and that's why I brought up the point about saying when people were able to have guns and it was like Black people weren't able to get them. The minute they started being in Black people's hands, that's when it was like, oh, we have a gun problem. We got to take guns off of people's hands. So that's what I'm saying. Nobody was talking about banning the N word until Black people decided we're going to try and change the narrative and give our spin to it. So that's what I'm getting to. And the reference that you're saying about, it's a word that affects a group of people and stuff like that. All these people are trying to get rid of it. What do you think happened with the word Christianity? Being a Christian was being ostracized. You say you a Christian, oh, you getting killed, like you getting persecuted. But now we use Christianity because it's turned into a positive light. So those people, fought to get that difference, and they actually kept the word the same. They didn't even change it. So that's what I'm saying. At what point do we get something that we could get something that's ours? It does, like, I understand you're saying, hey, that's something that's negative upon us, whatever. But look at the LGBTQ community. You don't think they use slurs that we would be like that we would say would be offenses to them, but they don't say it amongst themselves? Yes, they do in their community. They say it amongst themselves, but you can't say it. That's our thing. So why is it that we can't get that same difference?
Well, first of all, when it comes to banning guns when blacks get, I don't know if that's necessarily true. The only instance I heard about that was in California with the Black Panthers. I don't know if that's a national thing. Um, as far as us being able to have something, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying we should not use an ignorant word that was used to subjugate our ancestors. So even if you look at it, we're quoting a lot of African stuff like, oh, the ancestors use this word for that. All right. African people are very deep into ancestral, heritage and respecting your elders. We're using a word that disrespected our ancestors. Nobody does that. Nobody else does that. No other cultures does that. We're using a word that was used to destroy our ancestors, and now we want to reclaim that word and changing it to something different. Let's take the same thing that you're talking about and let's choose a different word.
Okay.
Let's say Black King instead of, N word.
I could agree with you on that.
Let's take the intellect to another level and let's actually say the word that our ancestors use. Let's say Nitja.
Or negus.
Or negus. So if you want to reclaim the word, go back to the culture and get the actual word that you want to reclaim. And then when somebody said, well, negus sounds similar to the N-word, then you could say this is a verified word and this is the history of it. But instead, we want to take the slave master's word and twist it. To me, it's just, here's something interesting that I was thinking about. I used to look down upon my brothers and sisters that would name their children stuff like Shaniqua and Shaquana and all that stuff. And I was saying to myself, I say, we live in a Western culture. How you setting your kid up for failure, they can't get a job because da 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 da. And then I thought about it. Shaniqua, Shanakwa, Watermelon, Tanzania, at least that's our name. Because we got so many black people walking around named Washington and James. Those were slave master names. You got a whole lineage of Washingtons going back to you got your lineage started when the slave master named your great-great-great-grandfather, and you've carried his name all these generations. So at least when somebody say Shaquana Beninguez, that's their name. You know what I'm saying? So once again, we're taking a word that the slave master, not current white people. You guys know we don't do that in strategic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We don't shame white people for having ancestors that were slave masters.
I agree.
But we're literally getting in a time machine and going back into time, and we're actually taking a word that the slave master used to subjugate black people, and we're saying now that it is now moral for us to now say, the word no longer is offensive. We're going to use it for good things. You're going to tell your wife, you got some good N-word pussy, but it's okay if you say N-I-G-G-A. That's what I mean to say the P-word. I'm just saying. Because it's good now. We just reclaimed it, right?
Nah, I get what you're saying. And like I said, I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm just giving you my opinion on, the word itself, where I don't see it as offensive as other people do. But with that being said, I do agree with you. I don't agree that anybody should use the word, but it boils over to anything that's offensive. So it's just not, I can't, like, for me, I just can't say, don't use this word. If I'm not going to use this word, I'm not going to use any word. That's why, like, you'll rarely hear me curse. You'll rarely ever hear me use the N word, but I just see it as you can't say, oh, we got to take this word out that's offensive, but everything else. Like, I understand the universal part of it, but still, at the end of the day, to a certain individual, the way you use the F word to them is parallel to if you're using the N word to somebody, to, a black person or whatever. So I look at it as, on the whole, get rid of everything. That's just how I view it. That's how I view it. So that's why I'm like, yo, either you take it all or you get rid of it all.
Well, you talked about something important. You said about respect, and I agree with you. Respect for the struggles of African Americans, because a lot of people, some of them even in the chat, who, if you talk about the Holocaust, they'll be like, "Oh my God, terrible." You talk about Ukraine right now, they'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm about to go to fight in Ukraine." But if you talk about slavery, they'll say, "Oh, it's so long ago. Get over it." Part of going on that journey of getting that respect that is deserved, opening up that dialogue, is putting a ban on that word. Because now if the word is banned, you now can attack anybody who use it, and you will have the moral standing to do it, because everybody knows there's no gray area. This is the thing we're dealing with when we have these type of debates. You can't discount human nature. People don't like double standards.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that person who's going to say, I don't care. If they can say, I can say it. And the only way you can tackle these things is by putting full stops. This is not acceptable. This is the rule. This is what it is, and we got to stand with it. You can't go into a theater and say fire. Well, all the rights that you have, you can't do that. Why? Because people have done it before, and there was no fire, and people got stampeded to death running out of the theater because nobody wants to burn in a little box. So we've decided as a culture and as a society, you could scream fire on the street and not get in trouble. But the moment you walk into that theater and you scream fire, you're now a criminal. The same thing goes for the N word. It is a word that may have had lofty beginnings, but for hundreds of years, not a few dozen, not a moment. Like the use of NIGGA is a moment in history. It's just a few decades we've been doing that. For hundreds of years, that word was used to oppress us. So I think that that's one of those few words we got to say enough is enough. This is a fine line in the sand. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. If, I mean, this is all like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, best case scenario. If you had black folks who are actually doing their thing, like-minded, educating, doing their thing, less crime and everything, like everybody were doing their thing, and they hijacked the N-word with the ER and made it the NA. But when you look at a person who was an NA, like with the A at the end, they carried themselves like a scholar, an educated person. Would you have a different mindset on the word?
Let me see. I understand what you're asking.
So it's like, like how you say, you see rappers saying it and degrading each other, saying N-word this.
No. Will it change? No, it won't. It would not change to me, regardless of who's saying it. Whether it's the only way it would change to me is if a scholar says it, to talk about it in a scholarly manner, like debating it. Like if this wasn't YouTube, then we would be able to use the word so that people could truly understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
Any word should be allowed to be said in a scholarly context. When you're trying to do something productive, like understand the etymology of something and its impact on humankind. But if a Wall Street black dude comes, like my homie, he's a Wall Street guy. We went to high school together. He's a black guy. If he comes out of Goldman Sachs, where he works, making like $500,000 a year, and he says, yo, that N-word pissed me off on the trading floor, I'm gonna be like, yo, I thought you was better than that, man. All that education, Georgetown, all that good stuff. This is what you do. This is what you say. You
I don't
know,
know, man.
what is that teaching the little kids?
I think it's easier to say that in hindsight, because if we lived in a situation where everybody was doing what they're supposed to do and everybody was like not criminals, like of course you're going to have some criminals or whatever, but I'm talking like on a larger scale, everybody was doing what they're supposed to do, no criminals, working, blah blah blah, all of that good stuff, and the word was hijacked to demean the wretchedness of black folks, and you didn't have rappers saying, yo, I'm gonna shoot my ops and all of this stuff. Like, you get what I'm saying? It wasn't you, like,
no. So we're looking at it from two different angles. I'm not looking at it from that angle. To me, it's not a slur to depict a certain type of black person. To me, it is a slur that depicts all black people, regardless of your social and economic status. It's a slur that never when it was used in its context, never differentiated.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Even when the slaves that escaped from the South and taught how to read and were abolitionists, what they were called uppity N-words, which is a term that some black people use even to this day.
They do.
It doesn't matter to 18th, 19th, and 20th century Caucasian people who were ignorant. There was no differentiation between an educated N-word and a poor slave N-word. End of story. End of story.
I have a question for both of you. Okay. So, how do you feel about the fact that with every ethnicity, there is some form of a derogatory term to identify them, but yet the N-word is the only one that is still prominent, and there are other races that I do hear call each other it. Like, why that word though? Out of all, and I'm not going to say them because we are on YouTube. I don't want us to get a strike. But out of all the derogatory words, why is it that the N-word is still so prominent today? And among other races.
Well, who do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Well, let WallzP go first.
Walls, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe I would have to chuck it up to, still to this day, like, I mean, it's not prominent, but you still have black people who are suffering, from what happened in the past. So I think a lot of people, like, this is anecdotal, but this is my opinion. I think a lot of people on the outside who see what a lot of black people go through, especially when it comes to other races, not don't get me wrong, I'm saying white people don't understand what black people are going through and side with them to help make things better. But I think other races, like especially the Hispanic race or the Latino race, because let's look at it in history, blacks and Latinos was working hand in hand when it came to during the Black Panther time and all of that stuff. Like, they were working hand in hand. So I think
you're missing a group of people, Jews as well.
Yeah, that's true. No, but what I'm saying is, in America, like during the whole Jim Crow and stuff like that, it was the Black Panthers and the Latin Kings were working hand in hand to make change. That's what I'm trying to say. We're working hand in hand. So since the two communities were colliding, you're gonna speak. You're gonna speak what the other person is speaking. You're gonna speak their lingo to kind of bring that understanding. So if they're using the N-word or whatever, you're gonna start picking it up and you're gonna use it as a way to communicate with them. So I think that's where it came from, and eventually it wind up spreading out into other areas. And then when you look at hip hop, which a lot of people love hip hop, once they start hearing it in the songs and everything, when you got groups like NWA, who was talking about, being oppressed and police brutality and stuff like that, people is like, yeah, I get it, ends with attitude. I see the purpose of what that name stands for. You're fighting against oppression and yada yada. So I think that set the tone where people started listening to hip hop and stuff like that, and the word just became like massive and spread it amongst like every other race on a because hip hop is big, like it's big on a global scale. So I think that's why you see the N-word used like throughout all other races.
So wait, that's what NWA stands for?
Huh?
That's what NWA stands for?
Yes.
I didn't
And
know
words
that.
with attitude, yeah.
Yeah, ninjas with attitude.
So, like, if I understand your original question, it was other races have slurs, right?
Correct.
Why is it that the N word endures in the African American community?
Correct.
Is that
and
what?
other races, because I've
And
and
also
other
and
races.
and other
Oh, and
yes.
races.
other races.
Yeah,
Okay.
and other
All right.
races.
So I understand. I understand what Wolf P was saying now because you said other races. Got you. Got you.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it is. I think it's a. I think that the bigger issue is an issue that ties in with all the other problems in the African American community with violence, etc. It's a lack of education, a lack of self-worth. All right. So it's hard for me to have a debate about the morality of using and the legitimacy of using the N-word when it's dealing with the African American community. Why? Because I personally believe that that plantation stole our dignity away, and we never regained it back. We never learned how to have it back.
Mhm.
So you're dealing with people who lost their self-worth, lost their history. All right. So that's why Asian people will never refer to themselves as an Asian slur. That's why Mexican people will never call themselves wetbacks or something like that. I
Mhm.
would never use that term. I'm using that term simply for this debate. That's
Mhm.
why white people don't generally walk around calling themselves crackers and stuff like that, because they have self-worth and dignity as a people.
Mm.
They have a history and a culture to pull back on. I think all of that was robbed away from African Americans in slavery, and we never got it back. I don't see it. All right, and that's why we have the highest crime. That's why we have all these murders, all this extra stuff, the lowest educational rate, all of that stuff. So I feel like the reason why we're willing to accept it is for those reasons, right? And then the reason why other races are willing to say it is because they see us saying it. Because if I'm Puerto Rican or Dominican and I'm living alongside African Americans and they calling me an N word,
Okay.
and I'm making love to them, then I feel like I could say it. If I'm a white guy growing up in the hood, as I've seen, and all I hang out with is black people, and they calling me an N word, I'm calling them the N word too. I've seen that. We all have seen that.
Of course, of course, of course.
Black low income minority communities have white folks in it too. You know, so we are setting the stage and giving permission for other people to use this word. And the reason why other ethnicities don't do that to themselves is because they did not have the experience of African Americans.
Can I interject real quick?
Absolutely.
You don't think the Latino community refer to themselves in a with the S word here and there? Not on a scale of like how we use the N word, but you don't think they communicate with themselves using slurs?
I can't answer that question because I'm not in that community. But
Okay.
I also refuse to answer that question because if we're not talking about on the scale, then it doesn't matter. Because this vernacular is in the music, the movies.
I got you.
Everything, dude.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
And even when you listen to it on the radio and they cut it out, because of course they're gonna cut it out, it's not even cut out well. It's like
No, it's not.
you know what's being said. So broadcast radio for aliens to listen to 500 years from now. 500 years from now, aliens in the galaxy Xenu's gonna hear our radio waves and our music and our movies of us calling each other the N-word, man. Come on. It's just it's too much pain with that word, man. It's too much pain.
Now, this is one thing I will say. I think it's easier for a person like me and you, Strategic, to not fall into the realm of having to say the N-word, so to speak, is because let's face it, we're from the Caribbeans, I'll say. From the Caribbeans. So at the end of the day, we kind of know our history. You get what I'm saying? So we're like cut from a different cloth, so to speak. So it's like our mentality and our upbringing let us know we value ourselves and things of that nature. So we don't gotta, go that route of saying that word, so to speak. So it's kind of like I don't feel like my ancestry was part of. Well, of course, it was part of the slaves in Haiti and everything like that, but they fought for their independence. Nobody said, okay, we're going to just give you your independence. Haiti fought, conquered the person oppressing them. So we know our history. So with that being said, when you have a group of people who never fought for their history and it was given to them when their oppressor decided, all right, we're going to give you your freedoms now. And with those generations and generations of no escape, nobody to speak to, no therapist to speak to, because even at that time, if you go to see a therapist, they don't look like you because they weren't able to have licenses, to have those type of jobs and everything. So I believe like people who are Black Americans, I kind of feel like since they had no escape, so to speak, they definitely rely on the word. They rely on the word as a crutch because it's like, yo, you stole everything from me, but at least I have this word that I stole back from you, and I can embrace that I took the word from you, and now, at least in present time, there is blowback if you even think of using the word, especially the word with the er at the end.
I mean, I hear that, and the general point that you're making, I do agree with, but I do disagree that they did fight for their freedom. There was a lot of uprisings in the South.
Mm-hmm.
There was a very robust abolitionist movement. A lot of what came out of what resulted in the Emancipation Proclamation was due to the hard work of abolitionists fighting for the end of slavery. So I don't want to make it seem as though, white folks just said, all right, you're free today, just because we're tired of it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to let go of it. These folks worked really hard in the North to get people to realize that this is wrong and realize enough that this country went to war with itself to end it. So I gotta say, big ups to Haiti, one of the first free countries in the Western Hemisphere. You did it one way, but African Americans in the country, they did it a different way.
Got you. Okay.
But so I do agree that that a lot of that has to deal with culture and history. You bring these guys over and these gals over, and you put the Hutus with the Wutus so they can't speak to each other. The old people you kill off so they have no history. The bold ones you kill so they have no warriors, and all you have is docile people for you to be able to do whatever you want. Then you breed them, and that next generation knows nothing.
Gotcha.
And the parents die off. So yeah, it's easier to manipulate folks, and I do agree on that aspect as an example as to why that might be the case, that word might be accepted so much more.
All right.
So let me pose this question to you both. Do you think that as of today, in 2023, Black people are still oppressed?
On a grand scheme of things, no. Do I think there are subtle things that oppress Black folks? Yeah, there's little subtle things, but as far as but even though if there are subtle things that may oppress black people, Black people still have more opportunities than ever before. There's nothing you can't do.
My bad. 2022. I just caught that.
There's nothing like
Sorry
there.
about that. 2022.
I haven't ran into a situation now. Like I said, I can't speak for some people who may have attempted to do things and they faced racial barriers. I can't speak for those, but maybe I'm speaking out of turn. But in 2022, that may be outliers on a grand scheme of things, but I honestly feel like nowadays, like it's minute, because through my experience, it's anecdotal. Every job that I had, stuff like that, it's a white person that gave me the opportunities, stuff like that. So I don't feel we're oppressed. Like if you're talking 30 years ago, 40 years ago, yeah, of course. But I think now it's not it's on a grand scheme of things. I don't think it's as bad as it was back then.
Strategic.
Yeah, that's a complicated question. I feel like this is the greatest country on the planet. When I look at other countries like England, they have issues with race. They have issues with opportunity, with equality. France, same thing. Like a woman could walk down the streets of America with a burqa on. You can't do that in France. And that has nothing to do with race. That's religion. All right. You look at the motherland, there are a lot of amazing and rich countries in Africa, and there's also some war-torn countries where they're still using child soldiers. There's no country, You look at Ukraine; they won't even let the black folks leave.
Yeah.
there are, and then you come to America and you realize that this country truly is the greatest country on the planet. Now, that being said, I don't think that black people are being oppressed in America at all. I think for the most part, we're oppressing ourselves, but that's a nuanced conversation, because I think that our chickens are finally coming home to roost as a country. All that lack of investment of education decades ago, the welfare that was given to the black community, sick, throwing fathers out, Joe Biden and his ilk, and Strom Thurmond throwing black people into prisons over the war on drugs, and now they making everything legal now. It wasn't somehow our drugs are less bad now than they were back in the days. The disproportionate sentencing, destroying black homes, all that stuff results in the generations that we have now walking on these streets who don't value education and don't blink an eye at killing each other. But that's the media also focusing on the lowest tier of black society. Middle class blacks don't have no problem taking advantage of the opportunities of this country, because the difference between now and America at any other time in American history is rampant capitalism. America doesn't give a damn what your color is if you can make a money. If you go to school and you get skills, you're going to get hired. Can you breed racism out of people? Educate racism out of people? Of course not. You can't do that 100%. But if there's one job you go through that's not going to like you because you're black, there's 1,000 other jobs that will take you to code that software because they got a deadline and they don't give a damn what your color is. They just want to give this software to the Japanese car maker so they can make billions. There's nobody oppressing people at this moment on a large scale but themselves.
So, Strategic, let me ask you this question then. So, based on what you said, do you still think that there's a need for affirmative action?
I got to look at the data on that. I think a lot has come out of it, and then you have other people saying that a lot of bad came out of it. Like, I saw some studies that showed that affirmative action helped a certain amount of minorities get into certain schools, and then they actually failed because they weren't actually prepared to go to those schools. Like, you got into Harvard, but you really weren't prepared for Harvard, and then you got in there and you flunk out. So it's not something that I could give you an answer for. But at this point, affirmative action is failing everybody anyway, because Asian people are considered minorities and they're taking everybody's slot. So affirmative action is not even working for black people anymore, because, no disrespect to my Asian brothers, I love y'all, but they're taking all those slots because, one, they're super hard workers and they're getting great grades. And since so many of them are getting great grades, they now qualify to take those spots in affirmative action.
See, I think we should do away, honestly, with affirmative action, because at the end of the day, if a lot of Asian brothers are coming in and taking these jobs, I think that points that kind of picks out, like, yo, nobody's coming to save you, so you got to bust your butt to achieve whatever goal you're trying to get. So I think it'll light a fire under people to make them actually work harder.
Now, wait, are you talking about jobs or schools? Because I'm only talking about schools. I don't think
I'm talking about
quotas
jobs
in the workplace. I don't think there should be any quotas in the workplace.
They should be hired on their own merit,
right?
Okay,
and there should be protections. Like, if we can prove that you are systematically not hiring qualified people of a certain color, then that's a problem. But we should not tell an employer that you have to have 5 black people in here.
The school thing, I agree with you. It's a catch-22, no matter how you look at it. It's a catch-22. So I agree with you on that aspect.
So what do you think that black people can do more of, so that way we can get into that, middle class level? Like, what can we do more of to promote better outcomes for our people and change the trajectory of our lives?
Well, this
Education.
One I go first. He went first.
Okay,
last
sorry.
time.
Okay, yeah, my bad. Don't beat me up.
I've been drinking this Jesus juice. Feeling kind of froggy
Jesus
right
is
now. Yo, when I was young, I used to love communion, man. That was the only time I got to
What?
drink some wine.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to take an extra big gulp. The priest kind of realized that he started making sure he sipped me like he only tilted the cup a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
I'm like, yo, nah, man, what's wrong with
Yo,
you?
you dead wrong. You dead wrong. All right, go ahead.
Now,
Go ahead.
to answer the question, we got to change the culture.
Mm,
If we change the culture, everything else will follow. We have to change the culture. Our culture is very consumer, like entertainment driven. You know, when our kids want to make it out, it's not I'm gonna bust my ass and get this doctorate. It's I'm gonna be a basketball player. You know, I'm gonna be a rapper.
yeah.
All right. We need to change the culture. When you go to the Asian culture, you go to the Jewish culture. I was watching a Jewish guy get interviewed on this platform, and they said, "Well, what's the secret to Jewish success?" He said, "Because we value education, and you have to want to be either a doctor or a lawyer. And if you do something else, you got to bring money. So if you come to mommy and say, I'm doing real estate, she expects you to have millions of dollars of worth of real estate in your holdings. Now you're not a failure.
Yeah.
The only way you're automatically not a failure is if you're a doctor or a lawyer. Any other profession that you choose, you have to be 10 times more successful for mommy to say, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You into music? Mommy, I'm a music executive. Okay, my son is successful. We need to change the culture. We have young kids. So once again, that culture says we're poor, we're struggling. It's okay. We're going to school. We're going to get as much education as we can. We're going to change that around in one generation. We have so many generations of inner city African Americans that are just going through the motions. The goal is I'm going to get my high school diploma because I'm going to be the first person in my family with a high school diploma. And then after that, I'm going to go work for FedEx. After that, I'm going to go work for UPS. And then you UPS, FedEx making $60, $70,000, which is good money. You're in New York. I mean, in other places they get paid less. You're considered, oh, my son is doing good. But and you are, and I don't want to take that away because I'm a part of that. I'm a cop. I make a everyday man salary.
Mm-hmm.
These other cultures say you have to reach for the stars. And I'll leave it with this. I've even had these conversations with my colleagues. Do you know that a lot of them, my Caucasian colleagues, fellow cops, they're viewed as the loser of the family
Wow.
because everybody else is a doctor or a lawyer. And even though they got a job that pays them great pension, great health insurance, they could buy a house. They're not living in a projects or nothing. You know, they have nice cars. You know, the Tesla seems to be the thing of my department now. Like everybody has a Tesla. They're still the loser of the family because they're not a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
We need to adopt that. We need to adopt that.
WallzP.
Yeah. He basically broke it down because the way I see it, man, it is culture because you got to look at education, you know, getting a trade, anything of that sort. And like he said, man, a lot of people look at it as, because let's look at it. If you have a child or whatever, and you're like, yo, this guy's a scholar and everything like that, blah, 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 those around you will be like, yeah, but is he good in any sports? You know, because he could get a full ride scholarship, whatever. But it's like, no, do you realize he can also get an academic scholarship too?
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be, oh, he got a wicked jump shot or whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, like, I mean, I don't know much I could add to it, but yeah, I see the difference when it comes to other cultures, whether it's, you know, African, whether it's Asian, whether it's I don't know, so many different nationalities. They make sure they prioritize education. Yeah, like you know, Indians, they prioritize education where it's like, and that's the thing too. They will literally sponsor that, like the child that's going away to school or college, they'll sponsor them like, yo, we're gonna put this money together, get you through school, this way you become a doctor or whatever the case may be, or a lawyer. And now that you make it to that top where you don't have no debt because school was paid for you through and through, now that you do that, we're gonna bring the next one. you're going to help bring the next one over. So we got to really indoctrinate that culture amongst us and look to lift each other up. Because right now, man, not for nothing, most people got the crab in the bucket mentality. You ever see something like you see it now where if you see a guy like in a well we're talking impoverished area, but if you got a guy who's in a impoverished area but he's doing well for himself and basically can now get himself out of the hood and move into the middle class area, the people that see him going to work and everything, they're looking at him like, yeah, look at this guy, I think he's better than us. They're not saying, yo, how did you get there? Like, what steps did you take?
Yeah.
Help me out so I can get there. Do you have any advice? No, it's that crab in a bucket mentality. Like, yeah, you think you better than us. Nah, then they want to, try to rob you and all that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a cultural issue that I think we need to improve on. And those that make it out too, or, I think we should also try and help those who are that are impoverished also, to help give them the guidance of, yo, how would you like if how would you feel if I told you, yo, you could, go to school, get an education or get a trade, and yo, you'll be making X amount of dollars, X amount of money a year. Oh, word, how do you do that? Yeah, let me tell you, because there's the step I took. So I think it works hand in hand where we got to educate each other, because a lot of people, once they make it there, they're like, all right, I'm good, I made it out there, let me take my family, I'm out. So it has to work hand in hand for us to take the time to educate and bestow the knowledge that we have on each other.
Like, you're
You know,
absolutely right.
you said something funny about Indians. Like, so look at what education does even to crime. So look at the crimes that Indians are doing. They want your money. They'll call you up and trying to sell you Microsoft protection, right? Uneducated people, they'll go rob you. They'll put a gun to your head. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now these guys make way more money calling all Americans up, pretending that they're gonna give you a new warranty on your car, than a dude who's literally just going out there picking random people, robbing them
Yes.
until the law gets them and throws them in a cage for the rest of their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Education is everything, man, and a desire to learn your history. Because how do you, if you're African American, how do you go to college and never take an African American history class or like an African studies class? I went to college. I took Japanese studies, philosophy,
Yep.
which like ancient Greece and all that stuff, and African studies, and then African American studies, and learned about all the African American heroes that they don't talk about in high school or anywhere else for that matter. So not only did I learn about some of the important histories that came out of the continent of Africa, I also learned about the contributions of Black Americans to this country. That's what we need, man. But it all comes with the culture, because a child will never get there if the women, because we're all humans, we're all animals at the end of the day. We want to be loved, we want acceptance, we want pleasure, we want all the good stuff, right? You can't even get there if the culture is, oh, that's not cool for you to do that. That you're a nerd if you get good grades.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You're corny, you're not exciting,
That's true. I agree.
Yeah,
and that starts with not calling yourself a derogatory name that was invented to oppress you. Words have meaning, words have power. Words are how we communicate our feelings. Without words, we wouldn't even be able to understand each other. I don't even know what came first, the emotions or the words, because even a grunt could be construed as a word. Like, so before we had spoken language, when we were just cavemen and we were like, that had a meaning. If I said, maybe that meant a saber-toothed tiger is coming. Maybe, I mean, baby, you about to get it. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, you just said a racial slur with that one.
Have meanings, man. Words have meanings, man. So we can't discount those meanings, and we gotta be courageous and say, you know what? We don't need to take what they gave us. We could make our own. We don't need to constantly try and make lemonade out of the lemons that we were served by the history of this country, the evil history of this country. We don't have to keep making lemonade out of lemons, man. which is just seems like what we're doing. We're like abused, people who's constantly trying to make our relationship think that it's normal and it's okay.
Nah,
I
I
don't
get
know.
it.
Well,
Like,
Spear, I have a question for you.
yeah.
You mentioned how with Black people taking back the word, taking its power. My question is, why do you think that we haven't invented our own word or maybe adopted a different word? Or, like you said, go back to the actual history of what the word meant and started calling each other that?
Well, when you have people who their history was stripped from them, the people who were stronghold and ready to fight whatever, you
Mm,
emasculate them, you cut their Johnsons off in front of everybody, in front of their ladies and everything like that. You build a fear against, hey, everybody else, like, you better get in line. So after hundreds and hundreds of years of you basically making somebody feel less than, and then you once they you set them out into society, it becomes a problem. And we can look at, yeah, slavery was X amount of years ago, but what people don't realize is when you set them people out into the world, and even though slavery ended, they're still getting ostracized and all of this stuff. They have no one to turn to. So
mm,
when they go home with their significant other, what are they doing? They're complaining and they're getting out all their frustrations by talking. Now, if they have children, children are sponges. They're gonna pick up what the two are talking about, even when you think they're not listening. So once that child grows up and listen to this, what do you think happens? The cycle
mm,
then goes down to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. So you don't know your history, and all you hear is your parents, discussing their frustrations about society and the white man and all of this stuff and how they can't escape. So pretty much you don't have had therapy. There back then for them. So the only way you can do it is by self-medicating, of talking your frustrations out in your house or drinking, whatever the case may be. But you never solve that underlining issue, and it's passed down from generation to generation to generation. So people are going to act out. People are going to act out because they feel like they're trapped. They have no other way to get out, and that's that. Now, you do have people who wind up getting educated and find a way out of it, but what works for one person doesn't works for the next person, so to speak. And as
mm,
though I may feel, yo, we need to educate and get out of this, whatever, I feel it's kind of hard to do that because you don't know what type of mental health issue that all those years of pent up not able to get these emotions out has done to that person.
mhm,
Because we all know mental health is basically a big thing. So imagine a group of people who went through what they went through and had nobody really to speak to, no therapist or nothing to help with their mental health.
mm.
You're going to pass it down to your kids. You don't mean to,
Yeah,
but it's going to happen.
yeah.
So I think that's where that stems from.
So first of all, I wasn't laughing at you, RP.
No, no, I know, I know, I
Hey
know.
Washington says that your eyes are hypnotizing. And we got this guy, Scott's Metal 666.
Mhm.
Like, there's been times during this debate I got like thrown off because this guy is so ignorant. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I'm wondering, like, were you ever victimized by a black person or something? Like, there's a lot of hate in this guy's heart.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
listen, nobody's gonna censor you. I think my moderators have warned you or whatever, at least on my channel. You say whatever you want to say, but
Hmm.
it's people like that that make this conversation so hard
Yeah.
because here we are being open-minded, trying to understand each other, and his go-to reaction is to just speak hate.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
and it is what it is. I don't know how you found the show, but that's something that we try and fight against on the Strategic Eyes show.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Well,
And if
he
you,
said there's no hate here. That's what
well,
his response is.
I hear you, but when you say something like maybe tell your kids not to hate others, well, my kids are black kids, and my kids don't hate anybody.
Hmm.
So you're making generalized statements that don't, affect most of the population. Like when you see all this violent crime, that's in the lowest, poorest sectors of African Americans, and the
Mhm.
media is trying to make it seem like that's all we do. That's not all we do. All right. When we talk about welfare, they say it like every black person's on welfare. There are more white people on welfare in America than there are black people in this country. Nothing is a generalization. That's why everybody on this panel, whether you've been here or not, none of us believe in hating white folks. None of us believe in white guilt. On our channels, we each say we need to come together and stop hating each other. But you get these guys that just pop out of nowhere and they think they understand what's going on because it's a panel of black people. So you think you might be on the BLM channel. Well, guess what? Nobody here likes BLM.
Facts.
Exactly.
Facts.
So
exactly.
Open your mind. Just like these people that you probably hate because they don't look like you, we're able to understand that there's nuance in this world.
Okay, he's saying you're missing him through chat.
Well, listen, man, it's pretty hard because I've been reading you, buddy. So if I am, I apologize. I never had a problem with that.
And you said as usual. So is this the first time?
I don't know. I've never seen this guy before.
If he's a frequent flyer or what.
a lot of people watch the show and don't say anything.
That's true. That's true.
But
then also, I just wanted to point out for V Radio, I don't listen to rap music, so I'm sorry. I didn't know what NWA meant.
Yeah,
my bad.
See, and that's I'll say this too. I don't listen to modern day hip hop. I usually listen more so to the old hip hop, the 90s and stuff, where hip hop was fun. The new stuff now, I don't really get down, but I'm a person, I listen to all types of genres, whether it's jazz, whether it's dance hall reggae, whether it's R&B, whether it's old school 80s, Gladys Knight and the Pimps and all, I listen to all types, Haitian music, Latin music, I listen, whatever I'm in the mood for, that's what I'm gonna listen to.
Yeah. So. I know V Radio, it's all love. I just wanted to point it out because you put the wrench in and was like, even my son know who's in the V-Way. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. I know I know V Radio is Strategic's buddy, whatever. So I know he's like, yo, Strategic is giving him the business.
Well, we actually took a poll. We took a poll on my channel. I don't know if you guys can see my poll, but I took a poll and I am beating you 85% to 15%,
watch
buddy.
This. I feel different. They
losing.
They cater to you. They cater to you.
You are losing, dude.
I'll say this though. I agree. I agree with everything that you say. And to be honest, I wasn't even looking at it as a win or lose situation. I was honestly looking at it as an educational, just giving perspectives of how certain people may look at the N-word, so to speak. Because I'll say it. I don't use the N-word. I don't use the N-word. I don't use curses. But at the same time, I can understand why other people will use it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it right, but I can understand you have that liberty to use it. So I understand why. But like Strategic said, I do agree with what you're saying, where it's like, yo, if we want to change the narrative for us, we got to get rid of the word. And I agree with that. But on a grand scheme of things, my argument is if we're going to get rid of the word, we should get rid of all words. Because people are going to start looking at it as, well, why is this word, why? If you're going to ban a word, because think about it, you're banning a word. Of course, there's certain things where it's like, oh, this is offensive to do this. It's offensive. So not to say it. But we're literally talking about banning a word. So if we're going to go that route of banning a word, and I know that's not what you're saying, the grand scheme of things, you're saying black people shouldn't use it and everything like that. But at the end of if we ban a word, it's like, yo, then let's get rid of everything. So that's how I look at it. I'm not saying you're wrong, Strategic. Not at all. I agree with you 100%. But I will say this. You definitely thought I was going to go into some history for I can't say the word. Philosophical word with, negus and stuff. But I was like, nah. I'm not going.
That's because I warned him. That's because
you didn't warn me.
I warned him behind the scenes. I called him out.
You didn't warn me.
Listen, he was on another show. He's on another show, and I said, "Yo, send me your sources for this whole negus, Nugan stuff." And he sent me some Rastafarian website.
Okay, check this out, though. Check this out. As much as you may laugh at it, right? As much as you may laugh at it, I remember I went to this show called um Haitian Revolution 101 that
Right.
I went to. It was this dude Papa Gene. So when he went, it was a great show because he broke down everything like as far as the whole process of Haitian Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that people don't understand is that there's stuff that are hidden that you can't find on the net. So unless somebody documents it or you got ancient books that you can go to, because you can't even go some of the stuff that you're looking for, you can't even go to one of the libraries in New York. You got to go to like a Smithsonian
Mm-hmm.
and then find somebody to translate it. So yes, I understand it's like, yeah, you got it from an African website and stuff like that. Yes, that's true. But if you do searches where you'll see people who actually break this stuff down and show you the literature and stuff like that, that's the best thing you can do because you don't have access to these things. So you got to go with what resources that you can get, because there is other sources that I can pull up that can break this stuff down, but I don't have access to these ancient scriptures. And think about it. If it was clearly in a book that Jesus' description in the Bible was bronze skin, hair of wool, but for years, decades, it was painted as a white man for Jesus. If that can be done, what makes you think they can't hide the truth from you from the interweb, especially with net neutrality being gone?
I hear
That's
you.
my opinion.
I'm not talking about that. You're going on a
that's my
grander
opinion.
scale. I'm not talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm talking about the N word.
No,
So
I
all
know
the
that, but I'm just
information, like, listen, all the stuff that I got from the Ethiopian word, which is what you said, to the Egyptian, all that stuff is from scholarly sources. Like, you're 100% correct. Like,
yeah.
history is about who writes it, and we haven't written a lot of history, so really the history that we have is being dictated by others. I get that, but for this debate,
he's stressed for this
you know,
debate.
Yes, for this one.
you could have had some scholarly sources, not some jaw stuff. Because guess what? The source came from somebody who think that a dude president of Jamaica is God. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done there. But anyway, I gotta get the hell up out of here. I got work in the morning, guys.
Yeah. All right. So before we go, Tia, what was your analysis? Because you're the moderator.
All right, I have to be neutral. So before
neutral time is over.
Yeah.
You gotta choose a winner.
Before walking into this,
no, give your neutral analysis and then give your winner.
All right. So before going into this, I was definitely against the word, right? I don't use it. I don't curse, all of that. Listening to both of you, I don't know. I feel like it's a tie. I know people are going to kill me. I feel like you both had strong points because it's like I understand where WallzP
She's de Blasio. She's de Blasio, man.
Wait, strategic. We're not supposed to cut each other off, remember?
Yeah. You breaking the rules.
And
see,
name
that's
calling.
an extra
The
point for me.
Exactly.
That's an extra point for me.
You know what? And for people wondering, I had to take out some points with strategic. You kept, you
Judas.
interrupted a lot more than WallzP did. But I do feel like you both made really, really good points. And especially with answering the questions that I had throughout to you. Some of them actually came from my friends. So to me, I feel like it's a tie. Now, what about you all in the comment section?
I won.
This is what I will say. I'll say strategic. I give him the edge because, like I said, I had a whole different argument. So not a whole different argument, but a different mindset as far as the argument where we have a disconnect. But brother, I'm not giving it to you by a landslide. I give you a slight edge.
Nah. No, listen. I mean, it's hard to be in all honesty.
Yeah.
The point is good points on both sides because the point is, hey, these are people who have been victimized, and this is how they're coping with that trauma. And we all know people cope with trauma differently.
Yes, they do.
This is Black people aren't just calling each other the N-word because they just out of nowhere. Like, hey, just like people wear Jordans in the 90s. Yeah, we just decided to call each other N-words, and we just going to tell you what the definition is. And this is historical trauma.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. Yeah. Once again, there is no winners and no losers because
I know
what you're saying is not wrong. My point is just that we need to we just need to not do it because of its historical. But it's understandable what you're saying, that hey, this is how people want to cope with it.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like they're that sophisticated.
Yeah.
The people who are using it.
Yeah.
I think it's just a
got you.
force of habit. And when it's a force of habit, you forget the gravity of it. I think we've forgotten the gravity of it. A lot of us know, educated lady, know your circle, the people you keep around you are gonna know, because we keep like-minded people around us.
Absolutely.
But that kid that's in Harlem doesn't know, man. He doesn't know, because I was that kid. And we're you know what I'm saying? Like, I was that kid, And then when I got that education, that's when my whole world opened up. I was like, oh my God, I've been cursing myself.
Yeah.
I've been cursing my homies.
I gotta leave a cat out of the bag. I gotta drop a cat out of the bag. When I knew I was going into this debate with you, brother, I made sure to be on my P's and Q's and get my ducks in a row.
Yeah, last night I hit him up. He was like, I'm doing my research. I was like, all right. I smelled his brain burning all the way over here.
You are a person not to be trifled with. I always said to myself, if I'm going to debate, I will hate to debate strategic, because not to say you'll embarrass somebody like that, whatever, because I get it. Like, it's an intelligent conversation or whatever, but you can, in a politely way, make somebody look bad. So I was like, I went through phases. I was like, damn, what if because he was like, yo, I'm going to destroy you. And I was like, damn, what if I'm feeling, I put it like this. I was feeling like Rocky and Rocky 3. When he was like, I'm afraid, against Apollo Creed, against Mr. T, whatever. But yeah, I was like, dang, I might get destroyed, whatever, yada, yada. But I put my time in and I was like, all right, I feel like I'm ready to actually have a conversation. Because, as far as I'm not a scholar, I'm a guy behind the microphone, give my opinion, and that's what it is. But at the same time, I do have a level head. And, a lot of things I believe in. I stand by a lot of things that I say. Not a lot. I believe in what I say, and I stand by what I say and everything like that. But I just know you a different animal, brother. You're going to have a debate with strategic. You better come prepared, else. Yeah, you're going to get your buns handed to you. So I give you that respect, brother. I definitely give you that respect. Yeah.
I'll take those buns. I worked in a prison for 12 years. I'll take those buns.
Nah, it's not that I was underestimating myself, but I just know the man. The man is definitely a good dude, and definitely, can break stuff down to minute details. So I put it like this. I have a very high respect for you.
I appreciate it, man.
That's
it was
what I
a really
said.
good conversation, man.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how personal this is for you. How seriously you take it. You took it, and that's for all of us on this panel, because it means a lot to us.
Exactly.
Because these are personal things, man, and it's just stuff we got to work on.
I agree.
For our community.
Absolutely,
definitely.
I guess it's time for us to
time to wrap it up, everybody. Thanks for joining this simulcast, because this was on Strategic Eyes channel, and it was also on Matter of Opinion. So we appreciate you guys for joining us on this debate. You want to sign off, Strategic? I'll let you give, not let you, but you could give the sign off and close the show for us.
Oh, I appreciate it. Once again, man, Strategic Eyes show. Please consider liking, subscribing, joining the channel, joining us. There's no barriers between me and the audience. You see how I had that conversation with Mrs. Scott Metal 666. That's what we do on the show. I talk to the channel. I talk to people. We don't stop people from speaking their minds, but we will challenge you. So show love to the channel and be respectful. So show love to the channel and support the channel and support these guys too. And I'm so happy that we had this debate, man. So happy.
Yeah, and I'll definitely hit you up, like, updates with what we discussed earlier today.
Awesome, cool.
I'll definitely keep you updated with that, and I thank you for that. I thank you for that gem also.
Absolutely, my blessings go to you. My prayers go to you in that situation.
All right, everybody, it's been fun. Good night, everybody. We love you. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yes.